Knightline is brought to you by the Dever Team, your source for New Smyrna Beach real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Go to www.thedeverteam.com and call UCF alumni Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach needs. 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636.
Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and this is Knightline 220 from the award-winning Knightline Sports Network. Joining me as always,
Trace Trylko. Hello, everyone. Taking a look at the wide receivers and tight ends as our position reviews continue. We weigh in on another week of voting in the third annual Nightliner Awards. Ben Stout on men's basketball's loss at Wichita State. From FTU to UCF, we continue our look at 50 years of men's basketball. We preview the 2020 softball season with the voice of UCF softball, Eric Lopez. And I'm sure this was sent in just for you, Andrew. And which animal best represents each of UCF's running backs? That's in Ask Knightline. But first.
But so crowded, oh crowded, crowded.
All right, a week ago, UCF fans were worried because the quarterback room had a few too many empty chairs. What a difference a week makes. Let's talk about it. We got not only Quadri Jones coming back, but now we have a quarterback signee or commitment as well, not signed yet. So,
and technically, Quadri is not yet officially back on the roster. However, as he,
I don't know how long that takes.
As he gets back into enrollment at UCF, but I would say I was surprised, considering that he was looking for an opportunity to see more playing time, and he knows what's in front of him, but the grass is not always greener somewhere else, and I guess he missed being home.
Well, I'm going to say, and I've said everybody when said this to everybody when they, texted me or whatever, Quadri's back. I think it's a huge mistake for Quadri personally. I think that he could have gone someplace like this Georgia State or whatever that he was going to, or Alabama State. And he could have started. And so I personally think that he made a mistake. I mean, we welcome him back, obviously, but he's going to be stuck behind two quarterbacks at least, just like he was before. So I don't understand the situation. I think that it probably has something to do with a girl or something like that, personally. That's just my personal opinion.
Homesick,
I don't know
too.
that.
Maybe just homesick.
Yeah, but I mean, getting the chance to go someplace to a lower level program and starting versus being a backup, the third backup or second backup on, a Division I UCF team, I don't know. I just think that he probably would have been better off going to the FCS and starting, and probably could have had a really good career there.
Which is what he seemed to be thinking,
and that's what
when
we all
he made the move.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I can't wait to see if he says what the reason was or whatever. I mean, I'm sure somebody will talk to him about it at some point.
And how do you feel about it from a UCF perspective?
Well, I mean, it's good, I guess. I mean, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. I mean, yes, he can play, and it gives us another body in the room, but that's all it does, really, is give us another body that knows the offense. I mean, how often are you going to get, hopefully, how often are you going to get to your third quarterback? So, I don't understand it. I understand fully Mac deciding to come back, and because he's right there, literally an ankle away. Well, Quadri Jones would be two ankles away. So there's a big difference between one ankle away and two ankles away.
Do you think he gives more and brings more to the team in camp and just day-to-day practice than, for example, going back a year, than a Brandon Wimbush? If we were to get another one of those grad transfer type quarterbacks, which it seems to me with Quadri seemingly coming back onto the roster, take some pressure off of Coach Heupel to bring in that kind of grad transfer, though I wouldn't rule it out.
I think that it doesn't make it as necessary to get one of those guys. I mean, and I don't know if you would even want to at this point. You're going to have 5 or 6 quarterbacks, it sounds like, coming into the thing. 5, I guess, including McKenzie. So we also, got this Parker Navarro guy to commit from Phoenix Desert Vista High. Had a standout senior season, leading Desert Vista to the state semifinals while passing for 2,749 yards, 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 64% completion rate. He also ran 959 yards and 11 scores, 11 touchdowns.
I'll tell you, of all that impressive with the statistics, I think back to something Coach Heupel said after the early signing period when he touted how many of the kids they inked had been in state championships, had been in the playoffs, leading their teams to wins, and that's good to see of him as well. Well, no knock on a kid if he's a great quarterback, but you don't want to see his team go 1-9. You want to see him go deep into the playoffs and
this
win
guy
championships.
Was their absolute number one target, from what I understand. Immediately when the dead period of recruiting was over, like literally, if it would have ended at 7:00 in the morning, they were standing on this kid's doorstep. A couple of our guys, our quarterback coach and our new co-offensive coordinator, tight end coach guy, the new guy, I don't even know his name yet. They were standing there literally. And the next day, he came to UCF and took his official visit, and boom, he's here. I've watched his tape. I like him. The ball does not come off of his hand very fast, but that is teachable. The thing that he does that is not teachable, is his. He's very accurate, it seems like, with the ball, and he knows what to do with the ball when there's nobody there to throw it to. So when he needs to pull it down and run, he can do it. He's really good at it.
So when you mean not teachable, you don't need to teach him this. He's got that down from what you see on tape.
I just don't think that you can teach that. That's something that it just comes naturally, knowing when to do it and how to do it. Knowing when to do it, I guess, is teachable, but the part that's not is really knowing how to be slinky and get through guys while you're running. I think that's a good terminology.
I like that term, slinky.
It means that you can get past guys and through guys without them getting their hands on you. So, yeah.
One of our questions in the Ask Knightline inbox that I'll borrow here at GoldenKnight_2 with our current quarterback situation. How sold are you with the new QB that, quote, committed to UCF? I feel the fan base is too quick to think that these QB recruits are a lock. He mentions Purdy, Wright. I understand that because those guys, at least Wright, seemed locked in. But I would say when National Signing Day comes here in just a couple weeks, we'll be seeing Navarro.
Yeah, it's coming up really quick, number one. The guy's offer list wasn't exciting. It was Arizona State, us, and I think North Texas, and maybe one other American school possibly or something. It wasn't an impressive list.
Does that concern you or you
No.
don't care?
Josh Heupel knows how to find quarterbacks. He knows exactly what he wants with quarterbacks. He's coached Heisman Trophy winners. He almost won it himself. He's a national championship player quarterback. He knows exactly what he wants and exactly the things to look for, and this kid just happened to be it. So, yes, the guy that went to Mississippi State or whatever with Lebby may have been one of those guys too, but I think this guy was the guy that he really wanted. Maybe the second really want or whatever, but I think that he obviously sees that this kid has the tools that he needs to groom him as an actual good quarterback. And I mean, freshman coming in behind a sophomore quarterback that's going to be here and so. This kid, I think that he has to think that he can compete when he gets here for, Quadri Jones's job, maybe, or Mac's job. You never know. He has to think that, or I wouldn't see why, and I think that's why maybe you miss on some maybe higher prospects when at this point. I mean, he was available. I don't know what. Maybe it's the thing that I saw, and it's the speed and the way that the ball comes out of the kid's hand. Maybe that's what people were a little bit worried about and why he didn't have a bunch of offers. But I think that, like I said, that's something that Heupel knows that he can fix. So,
and you mentioned the kid that committed to Mississippi State, where Coach Lebby went. There's no guarantee, by the way, that if Coach Lebby doesn't move along, that kid inks at UCF. You don't know that. We just assume that Lebby took him to Mississippi State, but we don't know that he ends up here. He'd be looking at the same thing ahead of him in Dylan Gabriel.
Well, it's obvious that Lebby was recruiting that guy. So maybe this guy was more maybe Josh Heupel, this guy was the guy that he said that he wanted. They made a big run at him. I mean, they went on this guy very, very quickly. So obviously they see something that they like.
So as you mentioned, right, 5, you've got McKenzie still. You've got seemingly Quadri Jones back, Dylan, Daryl Mack, and this new kid,
and there may be one more. You never know.
And you thought it was going to be what?
Pick up another one.
You thought it was going to be 5 or 6? I remember you saying...
Well, I knew it would be 5 or 6. 5 is a good spot, but with McKenzie taking up a spot, that would make it possible, I think, to have 6. But
of course, everybody anxious to know the latest with him as well, how he's progressing.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about that except that he was going to have his appointment this upcoming week at the clinic in Minnesota. So last I knew was just that.
And then unless family releases something on social media, of course, the team isn't going to release anything. So we won't have any definitive for certain kind of information. Based on the schedule of last year's spring camp, started right around the first week of April. We are approaching the first week of February, so still 2 full months until spring camp opens. And no matter what doctors say to McKenzie on his next visit, he's going to be further along in the first week of April than he is towards the end of January.
Yeah, and I'm sure that him or his family will say something. They'll say something. A lot of us, some of us, are friends with them on social media or whatever, and so we see that they say little things. So somebody will say something. So we'll know as soon as it's our time to know.
You can always tell the offseason, right? We're chomping at the bit for any little piece of news. Looks like the Americans' schedule will come out the first week of February. We will know the full conference slate. We may not know every game time, but we will know every date. But the ACC gets the jump on the AAC with its schedule. Things that we sort of thought were going to happen officially now, North Carolina at UCF in the night season opener. You like that? Do you like that matchup on a Friday night? The time not announced, but it'll probably be an ESPN or ESPN2 kind of game, a 7 o'clock start probably, 7, 8, something like that. It's a pretty good matchup, pretty high profile, and it's possible both teams will be ranked preseason top 25. ESPN would like that.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll be that Friday night primetime game. I think that it probably will, especially if they're both ranked. I wouldn't see, what could really go in that spot that's better than that. So, yeah, I mean, I like it. I mean, at least I know when football starts now, September 4th.
You like it better than a Thursday, right?
I do. I still don't really like Friday games because I have to take, time off of work.
As a lot of people do, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would obviously rather all of our games be Saturday night, personally. But
so North Carolina head coach Mack Brown was quoted and asked about the schedule, and he expressed some displeasure about Friday night. And he's old school, right? Friday nights were sacred for high school football, but that's long since passed. They schedule, and you can understand though why schools want those Friday nights open so they can go visit high schools. And of course, neither team will have that opportunity with all of their coaches being able to do that. Certainly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then, of course, one we've known about for some time now, official as well, UCF will travel to Georgia Tech September 19th. So 2 ACC schools dot that September lineup.
And the 19th is a Saturday, I take it?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
now, the game time on that one, too soon, obviously, but that's one where you could end up finding yourself with a noon time slot in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how good Georgia Tech is going to be this year. I don't think that they're going to be that great. So
Maybe not.
Probably not the greatest time slot there. But, I mean, then again, everybody wants to see what UCF does against Power 5 teams, especially on the road after last season. So we shall see if they give us a good spot or not.
Too soon to know what Georgia Tech will look like, but just mentally, I would think Pittsburgh would probably be a little bit better than a Georgia Tech.
Well,
I would think year in and year out, they'd be a little bit better, at least, than a typical Georgia Tech team. But it is an early season test, and they get the one at home with a highly touted quarterback who had a tremendous freshman year in North Carolina, and then you do get the road game. UCF has such a tremendous alumni base in Atlanta, across the Southeast. You got to feel like it's going to be a big Knight Nation turnout.
I would think so.
A good crowd, and so looking forward to that. UCF touting the news. I thought this was interesting this week. The UCF finds ways to pull little tiny statistics and spin them into things like you wouldn't even know was a statistic, but they combined the 2018 and 2019 seasons, and the Knights appeared 18 times on either ABC, ESPN, or ESPN2, but that ranked 11th, tied for 11th nationally. So UCF is someone they are putting on TV. Of course, it helps to have the seasons that they've had the last couple of years, but Oklahoma with 26, Alabama 25, Notre Dame 25, Clemson and Georgia 24. So you get the idea in big company with those programs, the blue bloods of college football.
That's pretty good, though. I mean, if you go down this list, like you were saying, I mean, there's no other group of 5 school in there.
I think Memphis was next. It's 16 appearances, but I didn't put those down.
But they're all blue bloods except for us, so that's a big deal.
It is
as far as I'm concerned.
And good exposure for UCF. But so the North Carolina game will be on ESPN. I don't know whether Georgia Tech, maybe that's something that ends up on the ACC network or something like that. But you can expect to see more UCF exposure in the 2020 season.
I would hope that they wouldn't put that on the AAC network.
ACC.
I mean, the ACC network, sorry.
Maybe they would. It's back to how the quality of Georgia Tech. I don't watch that.
I don't know a lot of people that have that. I'm not sure if that's in most people's cable spectrum, so that could be
never
interesting.
Seen it.
I mean, I have it on mine. I think I have 2 different online services that I use, and I use Sling and the AT&T TV, and I think at least one of those does have it, thank goodness, because that would be horrible not to be able to see the game. So if it's on one of those obscure networks.
True. I want to thank everyone for voting during our second week of votes for the Nightliner Awards. All right, your reaction to them. A couple of them curious as we move along, but wide receiver, runaway, no surprise, Gabe Davis. I, of course, got blasted on Twitter by all of my Twitter friends. Why did you even have this as a category? I had this as a category because it is a position and because we were going to be talking about wide receivers this week. So in my producing brain, it makes perfect sense. The one thing I am a little surprised about, not that Gabe Davis was the overwhelming winner with 93% of the vote, but Marlon Williams really, I thought, deserved a little bit more support. Of course, it's hard because you're being asked who's the best wide receiver, but Marlon Williams is going to be, not to skip ahead to the position reviews, but...
Well, I mean, I know that it was a hands-down 93%.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
Yeah. Again, I do think that these turn into a little bit of a popularity thing, although obviously Gabe Davis was our best wide receiver. One of the best in college football as far as I'm concerned.
Will be an NFL draft pick this
It's
season.
amazing how people didn't like the question, but there was a large amount of votes on that.
I know. It
like
fueled all day
probably
long.
the largest amount of
it was
votes
the largest for the
of
week.
the
Yeah, it was
so
the largest
we
for
won't
the
say the numbers, but whatever.
Yeah, it was the largest for the week.
Yeah, so...
I don't know. Linebacker, again, another big vote total, overwhelming. Nate Evans, 86% of the vote, outpacing Tatum Bethune, Eric Gilliard, and Eric Mitchell, which surprised me. Eric Mitchell finishing last in that heap. Again, 86% to Nate Evans.
Tatum Bethune got, when you look at the other 3 besides Nate Evans, if you look at... especially in these runaways, you really have to look at the race between the other 3. And it's interesting that Tatum Bethune got 6%, Eric Gilliard 5%, Eric Mitchell 3%. So Tatum Bethune not a close second, but a second.
He's not who I would have thought would have finished second.
Well, I think that you're going to see that kid's going to do very, very special things coming up, and I can't wait because he was exciting. There was a lot of times this year, really the first game that I noticed him, I was like, oh my God, I had to look up the number really quick because I didn't know who it was. I was like, who is this guy? This is awesome, so I'm really excited to see him. I can't wait.
All right, so it followed form for the first 2 days of voting and then went in a direction I wasn't expecting on the third day. The question was Offensive Player of the Year. Your contenders, Otis Anderson, Gabe Davis, Dylan Gabriel, Adrian Killens. Gabe Davis wins that 45% to Dylan Gabriel's 35%, and that surprised me.
I don't agree.
No, I knew you wouldn't agree with that one.
I definitely don't agree with that. I think personally Dylan Gabriel should get that because if he wasn't throwing the ball to Gabe Davis would never touch the ball. So,
which was a common theme of comments for people who were supporting Dylan Gabriel when they would share their comments.
Yes, Gabe Davis was awesome. Yes, blah, blah, blah. But Dylan Gabriel personally, and 35% of the people as well, thought that he should have been the guy. So,
and again, we're utilizing, it's not scientific, we're utilizing the Twitter platform, and, Gabe Davis has been more active on Twitter as a Twitter user than Dylan Gabriel has. Dylan is on Twitter, but it's not a platform that he uses with any frequency. So, it is the response to your followers on Twitter
it's all
well.
good, and I appreciate everybody voting on this stuff. I think polls are cool. I mean, we do a ton of them, which is awesome for everybody except Lebby, or not Lebby.
Lebby didn't like him either.
Lebby
and Libby.
Libby, it's all the same. Libby was the only person I don't think that
she's looking
likes
at
our
Mississippi
polls.
State, by the way. She may be moving. Coach Lebby's recruiting her.
It'll be Coach Lebby and Coach Libby. It's awesome. I had Lebby on the mind still from earlier.
All right, so Defensive Player of the Year, also a runaway in Nate Evans' week in the Nightliner Awards. 84% of the vote, Defensive Player of the Year, outpacing Neville Clark, Tay Gowan, and Kenny Turnier. But you can live with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I would agree with that. I think Nate Evans probably was the Defensive Player of the Year for the most part. One thing that I was perplexed about on this one, though, is why you didn't put Antoine Collier in this. I couldn't think of his name for a second.
I gave you the list. You didn't advise.
Okay, well, and then somebody else commented. I know I did,
but I'm
see
not sure that he would have finished greater than 3% either.
Oh, I think that he probably would have been higher than Tay Gowan and Kenny Turnier, personally. But I would have put him in there, and I probably would have voted for him personally. So
we didn't talk about this when we were talking about the question that came in Ask Nightline last week about players we thought might get picked in the NFL draft. Nate Evans? Or gets inked somewhere at some point? Maybe
a chance. He might be an XFL guy or I would hope somebody would take a chance on him. He just wasn't. He wasn't as high profile, I don't think, as some of the other guys. Even though we know what his motor is and the way that he does things, he might get overlooked. But maybe not for the XFL or like Canada or something. Maybe somebody takes a shot at him. Hopefully he gets or has a combine invite. I don't even know who all has combine invites at this point.
Well, late here on Sunday night as we record, CBS Sports Network will have the Hula Bowl. Jordan Johnson and Nate Evans participating in that game. So a showcase for him.
That's tonight?
That's Sunday night, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 10:30 start.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And then final category, which was interesting. You know what, by the way, I know you're probably not studying this closely, but whatever the instant returns are on these polls pretty much stay all day long.
Really?
Whatever happens in the first 20, 30 minutes, percentage-wise.
It's influence of what they see as well.
Whoever the early voters are, it stays pretty much in range. It doesn't usually switch up much. And so this was...
You can't hide the total, the results?
No.
That's a bummer.
No, you see it all day, yeah. Most valuable player, Otis Anderson, 12%. Gabe Davis, 30%, Nate Evans 34%, Dylan Gabriel 24%.
Yeah.
So again, this one seems a little skewed. No knock on Nate, but I'm not sure that when you look back on the 2019 season here 6 months, a year, 5 years from now, that it is going to be Nate Evans you think of most with the 2019 team.
No. This one could have gone a bunch of different ways. Personally, I was not expecting it to go Nate Evans' way. I would have put this between the other three, honestly. I wouldn't have even considered voting for Nate Evans on this. It would have been, Otis Anderson does all kinds of stuff. Special teams, running back, receiver. As far as a valuable player, you got to think about the name most valuable player. So again, you take the guy away from the game.
I like that way you phrase that.
And what would happen if that guy was not in the game? Otis Anderson not in a game.
So is Otis
There's
your
lots
vote?
of points. Well, I'm not saying that yet. There's lots of points left on the field though if Otis Anderson's not out there. Gabe Davis, another person. Lots of points left out there, probably. Although he was taken away in a couple games this season, and didn't do much. Dylan Gabriel, again, coming in third in this. Yes, he didn't have the greatest year ever by a quarterback for UCF. Not the greatest year ever, the greatest by a freshman. So if you would have taken him out of this game, and people will say, oh, you should have started Mac and all this other stuff. That's my argument there. I probably would have picked Otis Anderson on this because of the versatility and all the stuff that he can do.
This is speculation on my part, but in reading, and again, the people that follow Knightline at UCF_Knightline are not representative of every UCF fan. And, of course, people on Twitter, message boards, Facebook, and the like
and I think,
are very passionate. But I get the sense that and I won't phrase a question like this, I won't phrase, who do you blame for the 3 losses? I think there's a percentage of our fan base that assign a great deal of that to Dylan. And thus hold him back in something like this. So in the 10 wins, 9 of which, he was a starter in, I think there's great praise for him. But I think he gets pulled down a little bit, fair or unfair, that I think they assign a great deal of responsibility in those 3 losses to him when there were a lot of factors besides just him.
I think you're going to see the big difference that he makes next year. And I think you'll really see it. I think that he'll probably win that category next year unless somebody else stands out big time.
Remind me when we return, because you're taking a day off because of some game. What's that game?
Oh, the Super Bowl?
The Super Bowl.
Yeah, that game?
You
mean the Chiefs game?
What's your prediction, or are you going to avoid a prediction? You don't want any bad juju? You don't want to jinx?
I think the Chiefs win it.
Yeah?
I don't think
Hope it's a good game.
I think it will be a good game. I think that it might be tight.
High scoring,
but I think that the Chiefs, personally, I've watched them more than any other team, obviously. I just think that they can't be rattled. So they can go down 24-0 and come back and beat the other team by 24 points. And then go down again in the AFC Championship and then come back again and beat. So
when they lost during the season, not to make this a Chiefs show, but when they lost, why did they lose?
A couple of times they lost because their backup quarterback was in. Patrick Mahomes had a dislocated kneecap for a couple of games and wasn't in there. And then it was those games and the games of him getting back. The first time we lost to Tennessee, that was his first game back. So he wasn't quite himself yet.
So you favor him greatly in the quarterback matchup over Garoppolo?
Yeah, no question.
How about defensively? You think they can stop the 49ers' pretty potent running game?
They do have a pretty potent running game, but if you looked at what we did to Chris Henry in Tennessee, we stopped them completely. So, they didn't run on us hardly at all. They had to beat us if they were going to beat us through the air.
Do the Chiefs need 40 to win this game, or can they do it in the 30s?
I don't know about that, to be honest with you. I don't even know what the line is now.
I don't know either.
It was like 1.5 or something like that. I'm not sure if it's changed. It's not very much, I know that, but I have a feeling that my Chiefs are going to pull it out. If not, they're a point. So it's a point. Literally 1 point.
Pick 'em.
Yeah, pick them.
Pick them. They're favored by the one?
They're favored by the 1
Well,
point.
they are the home team.
They're the home team, whatever.
Are they wearing orange? They're wearing their unis?
Orange?
They're red, the red and orange.
Red, yeah. Red,
Well, they got
and-
some orange in there, don't they? Isn't it orange?
There's no orange.
It's red?
There's no orange.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's some orange in there.
There's yellow. They are wearing their red jerseys with their white pants, I believe. And 49ers are wearing white jerseys with gold pants, I think, possibly. Or no, I can't remember. But the Chiefs, the AFC, is the home team this year. So it's going to be interesting. But I think that we've waited so long to be there that I feel like it's going to get done. If not, I'm just glad that they were even there, because I think that they can be there again and again and again. Hopefully. I think that hopefully you're going to see a new dynasty in, the NFL. And I'm finally going to be on the right side of that instead of it being the Patriots. I think you're going to see this is it's a new breed now. There's a new breed of quarterback in the NFL. And luckily, we have one of the best of them.
Well, good luck to your Chiefs. Yeah. A happy Andrew Phegley is good for everybody. All right, moving on.
I hope I feel better. I'm kind of under the weather.
So a year ago, we're doing position reviews, and we would have had a conversation that sounded a little like this. What are we going to do without Traquan Smith? And now we say, what are we going to do without Gabe Davis? And the answer a year ago was we had a lot of talented guys on the roster. As we've been doing these position reviews, we feel pretty comfortable. I think you do as you're listening about the quarterback position and what a second year of Dylan Gabriel will look like. We've talked about the running game. We feel pretty good about that. Wide receiver, your major loss is Gabe Davis, going to be an NFL draft pick, just as Traquan was. But you like what you have coming back, don't you?
I do. I've heard Trey Nixon is down in Miami working out with some guys that will really help him. Number one. That's my biggest thing that I've learned in the off season so far. I've constantly kind of called him the laziest receiver and all that stuff, laziest player in the game, blah blah blah. I just don't think that he had the tools to work with that he needed to, the footwork, stuff like that. But I think that he's working on that, and I'm very happy to learn that he's working with some NFL guys, some really good guys this offseason. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. Obviously, I'm really looking forward to seeing Josias Cradle, our freshman, if he gets in there.
Do you expect to see much of him?
I would, absolutely. Yeah, because he can, he's going to, I think he's one of the best players to fill in, one side or the other on the outside. Marlon Williams is obviously a slot guy. He's not going to be on the outside.
Well, that was a question, I'd saved from our Ask Knightline at LBar87. Remember, she asked 3 in the Manny Morris exemption, and I said that I'd save some because I knew we were going to be talking about this position. And hers was, who do you see stepping up in place of Gabe at wide receiver outside of Trey Nixon?
It could be, it just needs to be you want a big guy out there. So, Marlon Williams is big. He's thick. I just feel like that he's a slot player. So, if you've got a 6'3" or whatever, 6'4", this guy, Cradle, if he's good enough, you might as well put him there. That the days of not playing freshmen is pretty much over. Especially with the free agency of the transfer portal and everything else.
You like Jalen Robinson and the prospect of him.
I think that now he's the transfer from Oklahoma. He's really a small dude. He's a slot receiver. He's not a big guy. So you never know with that, but I think he's like
5'9", 163.
Yeah. That's not an outside tall receiver. That's a slot receiver.
No, I wasn't asking in that reference, but just you like him coming in from Oklahoma and what he could bring to the table.
He had to sit out last year, so we haven't seen him. It'll be exciting to see him and see what he can do, maybe as a kick returner, whatever. You never know. Kevin Ahmed, I don't really know Kavan. Is it Kavan Ahmed? I don't
not
really
quite
know
sure
a
how
lot
you
about
say it.
him as well. I know that he has been in a couple times. Ryan O'Keefe as well. I mean, we saw him a little bit, not very much. Jacob Harris the same way. So basically, the core is going to be Trey Nixon, Marlon Williams, and whoever else fills out. And Otis Anderson obviously is as a slot receiver in some of those packages as well.
Concerned?
I'm not concerned. No.
Drop off post Gabe?
Nah.
Just keep chugging along.
Yeah. I mean, they've got to. The receivers in our scheme will get the ball. I mean, they just will.
And it's a good position battle in spring and fall camp.
Yeah.
There's opportunities for guys to really step
I'm
into
putting
new roles.
my money on Stretch, Josiah's Cradle, to be out there with the starters, personally.
At what point? The season?
Beginning.
Beginning of the season.
Beginning of the season, yeah.
Beginning of the season. We talked a great deal about, let's see if I can pull it up here quickly, but we talk about running back statistics and, the idea of can we get one or even two guys as 1,000-yard runners receiving. Gabe Davis, 1,241 yards
He's going
and
to be
12
hard
touchdowns.
to replace, period.
Marlon Williams, now, Gabe started 12 games,
Mm-hmm.
not the bowl. Marlon started 7 out of 13 that he played in. 717 yards. Second on the team in catches at 51. Gabe had 72. He was not second in yardage. Trey Nixon was at 830 yards. But Marlon had 6 touchdowns. Trey with 7. Otis with 3. Jacob Harris with 1. And
I don't think 1,000-yard receivers are nearly as big of a deal as 1,000-yard running backs, personally. The receivers are obviously down the field a lot more. They start running they don't really start running, I guess, but their thing is to catch the ball down the field. So automatically you're getting, some yards in there, where the running back starts behind the line of scrimmage. Most of the time 3 to 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So
you see most opportunity for most improvement maybe is Trey Nixon.
I do.
If he works in the
And
offseason.
he needs to, and he has to. Absolutely.
And Marlon just continue to improve his game. Otis being just all-around versatile like he has been.
I think Marlon is what he is, personally. And I don't know. I was hoping to hear that he was down there maybe getting some work. Marlon. I love the way that he plays. I think there's more there from him that we haven't seen, that he's capable of more. And from the slot, I mean, that's his spot. He's a slot receiver. So
do you think there's a 1,000-yard receiver, a future NFL draft pick in this mix?
We haven't seen a lot of these guys yet. I don't think there is, as far as the. I don't know. Of the starters or the players that we know about, I don't think that there is. I don't think Marlon Williams is a 1,000-yard guy. He could be, I guess. I mean, we'll see. Maybe he's not the greatest route runner and all that. I mean, that's not his thing. He's more of a catch it and kind of pound it guy. I mean, he's the big, heavy receiver. I think it's just a different thing. I think that you would need a tall guy, a big guy to to do anything like Gabe Davis did. I don't know. I mean, like I said again, I'm putting my money on Josiah's Cradle. I'm not saying he's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. I'm just saying that I think he's going to be a very good player. Hopefully.
Marlon, by the way, listed on the roster at 6 foot 222.
6 foot 222.
Yeah.
Now, if he was 6'4", 222, or something like that, he'd probably be a tight end. But Gabe Davis came as a tight end as well.
Just for comparison, rosterless Marlon at 6 foot, Jalen Robinson at 5'9", list Marlon at 222, list Jalen at 163.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you can either have a big slot guy or a small slot guy. I mean, small slot guys normally are the ones, but Marlon's got a lot of weight to push around and pull around as well. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I love the way he plays. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dogging him at all. I just do not think that he's... I just don't feel like he fits in one of those starting positions nearly as much as a taller, lankier guy.
But as we get closer and closer to spring camp,
We'll see. Yeah.
you feel good as we've done this. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, we look good going into 2020.
I think so. I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, just those 4 returning guys that you mention up there, I mean, that would do it, even without the freshmen.
So a question on tight end. I combined it with this group. We talked about Jonathan McAllister with some concussions and UCF not going to have him be on the roster anymore. And he needs, of course, to make a decision whether he wants to, seek another place or get his degree at UCF. And Anthony Roberson has entered that transfer portal, leaving Jake Hescock, who came up with a touchdown during the season, and 2 early signees, Gabe's younger brother, Jordan Davis, and then Tony Forrest Jr. I think we talked about with the hiring of the guy from Iowa State, Golish, whether this may lead to a change in the way UCF uses the tight end, which I'm looking forward to. Opportunity to talk with Coach Golish when spring camp opens. That'd be a question to see how they may utilize that position. But I think that's a question, not question mark, but question about how they will utilize tight ends going into the 2020 season.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I would think that it would be a little bit more pronounced as far as having, this new coach.
Because remember the statistics we talked about, how well tight ends did in the offense under him while at Iowa State.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, you could definitely see it, on the upswing, of course. I don't know about Jordan Davis and where he's going to fit in. I'm not sure about his size. I think that he's been injured as well at the end of his high school season. I believe that he was injured. So I'm not sure if we see him this year or not, honestly. It would be interesting to see, and I'm interested to see. I don't know his size or anything as well. Can you find him on there and see where they have him on there yet or not?
No, I don't see him on. Maybe it hasn't caught my eye. I don't see him yet.
Maybe
on
I
this
can
roster.
look on something else.
So I think there are some questions about how they will go about using tight end.
Yeah, obviously.
Whether it's a continuation of what they have been doing with the position. Jordan Davis, 6'4", 225.
6'4". See, he's a big dude.
And Tony Forrest Jr., 6'4", 235.
Yeah. So you never know. You may see him at wide receiver, Jordan Davis as well. So you never know with that one. It could be very interesting the way that they decide to use him. I think he's a great player. I mean, he's. I don't know if he was as good as his brother in high school or not. I actually never made it out to one of their games this year, and my daughter is graduating. My stepdaughter is graduating from there this year from the same school those kids went to. And unfortunately, I never made it out to see Jordan play. I wish I would have. It is what it is.
We'll continue with these position reviews on the next episode of Knightline. We're going to finish out the offense by looking at the offensive line. And we mentioned Jordan Johnson, one of those stalwarts, a key face on the line for more than 50 games, being in the Hula Bowl Sunday night with Nate Evans out in Hawaii. He is definitely one that will need to be replaced, so we'll spend a lot of time talking about the offensive line because it was a group that we felt going into 2019 was going to be one of the stronger groups, and there were certainly games where that did not happen.
Yeah, well, I think that Jordan Johnson is going to be really, really hard to replace. So
yeah, just the experience, the experience, right?
And it's such a huge position. Hopefully, there's one of the guys that has been behind him and learning everything that they could from him.
Gotcha. Did you catch any of the Pro Bowl from Orlando? Looked good on TV. What little I caught of what seemed to be touch football. They didn't see.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a little bit of it. I didn't really see anything.
Did you see Shaquille at all while you were watching?
I
did not.
I mean, I saw him on the sideline standing there. I did not see him play. I didn't really watch it. It's such a weird day in sports, and we would be remiss if we didn't say anything about Kobe Bryant. The news coming across at the beginning of that game, or a little bit after the beginning of that game, that he was killed in a helicopter crash with his 13-year-old daughter. What a crazy day in sports.
Sad, certainly, for everyone involved in that.
I was
amazed. Surprised that they said later on in the day that it was 9 people when the report had been most of the day 5. So to know that more families are impacted in such a tragic and sad way is difficult.
Yeah. So we'll find out, obviously, who else was on that, and hopefully those people don't get lost in all this just because Kobe Bryant was on it. But very interesting how these things are handled in the media with a sports. I mean, I guess I would say that he's a sports legend in the NBA, at least.
And transcended the NBA in media and entertainment and brand.
Did a lot outside of the NBA. I was amazed by like how everything I was watching, no matter what channel it was on, broke in with breaking news on this. You don't see that with a lot of people. So I guess, really big deal. And our condolences to his family and all that stuff, and the rest of the families that were involved in that.
Certainly.
Kind of a bummer.
You mentioned the media, and we got a question in the Ask Knightline about an issue of media, so I'll save my rant for later on about that. But the people breaking news on Twitter and social media without facts, saying all sorts of things in relation to this situation or any other situation, we're long past the days where it used to be 2 sources before you said something. Everybody wants to be first, even when they're not right. And there's danger in that. Have
you noticed, though, TMZ is really good? They're really fast, and they're always right. Like 99.9% of the time, they're right. So
I don't pay attention to them, but
I was shocked that they were the first ones that came out with it. And then the ABC reporter was the guy that said that his 4 daughters were killed in the thing, and he actually retracted that on cam, which was really good.
Well, as he should.
Yeah.
But you should never be in that position.
Well,
you need to find these things out and verify it before you go on and talk about it.
Yep.
And everybody wants to be first, and everybody wants to talk, but not everybody wants to be right and first.
We know what that does when the facts are not straight.
No.
And then, the sheriff, while he was, they had their press conference, and I watched that a little while ago, and the sheriff was like, how would you like it if you found out your loved one was killed on Twitter or whatever?
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree.
Basically, let us do our jobs, let us identify everybody, and then... so I guess this is part of our generation and our time.
The only ones that need to know are the family members.
Yeah.
The rest of us will find out when it's right.
I agree.
And released.
I agree.
No easy way to segue out of this story, but we've been talking about 50 years of men's basketball, and one of the interviews that we're going to share with you coming up is that sometimes when the team practiced, they had to dodge buckets set out to collect drips from a leaky roof. Our 50 years look at men's basketball continues. Next, the Knights' 2-game winning streak is snapped. We are talking about it with Knightline analyst Ben Stout, that only on Knightline number 220.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline and Knightline Postgame Live. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Knightline's own 7-footer, Ben Big Social Stout, and Inside the Paint.
The Knights show heart and rally on the road at Wichita State, but the Shockers proved to be too much. Final, Wichita State 87, UCF 79. The Knights dropped to 2-5 in league play, 11-8 overall. And we're going to talk about it right now with former Knights men's basketball player Ben Stout, who joins us on the Knightline hotline. All right, Ben, shall we start with glass half full or glass half empty? You choose.
Just to get it out of the way, we could start with glass half empty.
Okay, all right. I have asked Coach Dawkins on more than one occasion about the foul trouble that Colin Smith gets himself into. Even after the last time I asked it, he sort of laughed and said, yeah, we're kind of used to it by now. However, this is not something you can get used to, and it doesn't look like we're seeing a great deal of improvement on that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't seem like we are seeing a great deal of improvement on that particular part of what's happening to Colin when he's on the floor. Yesterday was a very, very strange officiated game. So I'm not going to put it all on him, but by the same token, he's got to, as Coach Dawkins has said numerous times to you in your conversations with him during the press conferences. As he said to you, he's got to understand his value to this team and how he helps this team when he's on the floor and he's active and he's doing his thing. And how we are a different team in his absence when he's on the bench with foul trouble, and it kind of just throws off our whole game plan. I by some of the comments that Dawkins makes, in the press conferences, it does seem like we're preparing for him to be out of the game for stretches of time, but it forces us to change our game plan on the fly, which is not something that you really want when you're preparing for a really tough opponent on the road like Wichita State. We had to make adjustments. We had to go smaller yesterday. I thought Tony Johnson Jr. and Darren Green Jr., two freshmen coming off the bench, played excellent yesterday, but it certainly forced us to make adjustments. And beyond just the foul trouble, I thought yesterday at Wichita State was probably the worst game that Collins, and I think that if he was sitting here with us right now, he would agree with me with this statement. I think it was by far probably his worst game of this season so far. He was getting bullied down low by Jamie Ichinike, which I'm probably messed up the way to say his name, but he was really getting bullied by the size that Wichita State had down low, and they were kind of taking it to him, as they should with an opponent of UCF. They should certainly be taking it at Colin Smith and trying to get him into foul trouble, but it was even beyond that. There was a lot of kind of strength or bully ball going on down low in the post yesterday that was established early by Wichita State. And unfortunately, and he has been up to the task of many times before, especially this season since he's our focal point. He has been up to the task on whether the team is trying to finesse or get around him or trying to take it out of his chest and kind of bully him around. He has been up to the task on the strength side. So I'm certainly not going to go to the lengths of saying that he's not able to play that type of game, because I believe he can. It's just that unfortunately yesterday was one of those days where he just was a little off, and they were taking it at him, and they got him in foul trouble. But beyond that, when he was on the floor, it unfortunately just wasn't very effective at all.
So is this a discipline issue with Colin Smith, or what's causing him to foul out all the time and to get all these fouls? Is he playing too hard, or what's going on with it?
It's tough to say, Andrew. It's tough to say since I'm not in practice or not. I've never talked with Colin Smith longer than a minute or two. I don't know exactly what's going on with him as far as getting into foul trouble. Maybe he's trying a little bit too hard, and he needs to sometimes take a page out of Avery Diggs' book, where Avery Diggs is pretty good at standing straight up and trying to change a shot as opposed to necessarily block a shot. And I think that maybe he gets a little bit into trouble there. He's pretty good at moving laterally. So it's kind of surprising that he reaches in as much as he does, but maybe it is a little bit of discipline on that sense of instead of trying to go for the ball, trying to get a block shot or reach in and grab a steal, trying to be a little bit more straight up in the post. I mean, obviously he's gotten himself into great positions and position in the past with the charges that he's so well known for taking, but in other cases, in a lot of cases, he's gotten himself into foul trouble just by trying a little bit too hard, trying to reach around the post player when they're inbounding the ball, which is one or two of the fouls that he got yesterday. And so yesterday was a really weirdly officiated game, but I'm not going to put it all on the refs. It's just we got to have him trying to change some shots as opposed to block shots or whatever it may be, because we need him in the game. And sometimes I hate to say it because as a big man myself, like, it drives me nuts when I see big men or any players like kind of afraid to be posterized or letting a bucket go because they're just afraid to foul or whatever it may be. But in some cases, and this is something that they have to review on tape with him, so he's kind of knows it innately. But I think in some cases it may be better for Colin Smith to just give up an easy bucket that he's just not in a position to do anything about, as opposed to trying to do something about it and get a foul and get out of the game sooner. So hopefully it'll be a further development, something that they can kind of concentrate in tape sessions and get him a little bit improved on, but we just haven't quite seen that improvement. It's unfortunate.
All right, Coach Dawkins says repeatedly, and we've seen during his tenure, there to be a defense-first team. You read the box score, you see the final score, 87 points. UCF does not win basketball games when they're on the other side of 87 points. Or the other team has 87 points. They're not going to win that game. What concerns you about the defense and what you saw defensively from UCF on Saturday night?
A lot of lost assignments, especially for a good stretch within the first 5 minutes to maybe the 10-minute mark in the second half. There were our defense, and the way it relies on a lot of execution and a lot of communication. And I know that's just kind of seems obvious if you're a basketball fan in general. Of course, defense relies on both of those things. But the way Dawkins sets up his defense, where he shows a lot of zone, for instance, he'll show a zone, and as soon as they get into their offense, then we'll go to man. And so that type of kind of switching that goes on and the kind of dynamics of Dawkins' defensive scheme is unique to a lot of different college basketball teams throughout the country. And I think that's the reason why we're successful for long stretches and for many games in a row in the defensive end. But if you have some lapses in execution and you have some lapses in communication, especially the weak side, and especially like these soft portions of our zone defense, if we're in it for the whole possession, or even as we're kind of getting into that man, there's these soft places that in the short corner, the weak side cut the backdoor cut is sometimes open, where we just went through a long stretches yesterday where that type of execution just wasn't there. We were losing, they'd swing it really well around the perimeter or get it into that kind of free throw line extended area. And then all of a sudden there was a wide open play at the bucket. And that was a tough stretch to watch because it didn't appear that there was any lack of effort, which really, as we know from speaking with me throughout this season, that's what really gets me frustrated. But what gets me a little disappointed is not, because I didn't see any lack of effort throughout the game yesterday, but you definitely saw some lack of execution against a team that is extremely well coached and will make you pay if you're not executing at the highest level on the defensive end. And so that's unfortunately happened for that long stretch in the beginning of the second half yesterday, and we just couldn't quite recover and couldn't quite fight back in order to take the lead.
All right, I promised you glass half full. I'll borrow from our Ask Knightline inbox from @Brando Nitro. Was that halftime buzzer beater by freshman Tony Johnson the craziest shot you've ever seen from a UCF game? And I'll put that together with your post at BigSocial32 on Twitter. Tony Johnson Jr. and Darren Green need to average at least 20 minutes a game for the rest of the season. So there's your glass half full. Run with that.
Yeah, I mean, we saw some great things from the freshmen yesterday. The two main freshmen that were playing for long stretches yesterday were, I think, in the last number of games, we are really missing Dre Fuller. So the future is bright from our three main freshmen that have significant minutes this year. I thought Tony Johnson Jr. has been ready. He has seemed ready to get in whenever he can this whole season. He's tried his best to make the most of his minutes, and yesterday he was prepared and he was ready. And when Dawkins saw that he needed to be in there and needed to kind of mix things up with this smaller lineup that he employed at that time, Johnson Jr. really showed, why we recruited him, why he's here. And he's a strong guard that has the ability to shoot the three, but that doesn't seem to be the main part of his game. He seems to be a fierce, basketball player that is really intense, and he wants to get his teammates involved wherever he can. And if he sees that opportunity to put the ball in the bucket, he's going to take it. And we saw that yesterday. I think these two guys, I'm not trying to play for the future yet. We do have some young players on this team that we need to continue to get involved in, and Darren Green and Tony Johnson are certainly two of those players that we need to continue to develop and continue to get involved, because I think they can help us this season. But we need, I think that I don't want to start playing for next season yet by any means, because I think we can do some good things. But I definitely would like to see more and more of Tony Johnson Jr. running that second lineup. We've got two really solid point guards in Dazon Ingram and Cesar DeJesus in the starting lineup. And then they kind of switch off who gets a breather and who doesn't. But I wouldn't mind when Darren Green Jr. is coming in the game that Tony Johnson is coming in with him, and we'll see what the future looks like from that second lineup moving forward. I think that getting them close to 20 minutes a game would be helpful not only this season, but set us up really well for the future.
In fairness, the rest of your post after you called for 20 minutes a game for Tony and Darren reads, especially if we drop our next game versus Memphis to fall to 2-6 in conference. Of course, UCF starts 0-4 in conference, wins 2 consecutive, arguably drops a game where it was always going to be difficult to win on the road. Makes it all the more meaningful then to have Penny Hardaway and the Memphis Tigers come to town midweek for a game at the arena. Memphis reeling, though, a bit. 3-3, UCF 2-4 in the league. Certainly a swing game. And then Saturday off to Tampa, UCF just with a 1-point win over the Cows back on January 18th. So they just played them, and it was a tight game, went to the end. If they're going to be playing for this season, how they do in these next 2 games is really important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Memphis is, as we know, Memphis has been kind of a strange team this year. As soon as they got in, especially when they got into the conference play and the kind of tough matchups. For them to lose by 40 at Tulsa was just like a shock to me. That happened 2 games ago for them. They're a team that is a lot like us in the sense that they've got a couple seniors that contribute a little bit, but they're all. They had the number 1 recruiting class in the country last year. They're a young team that's got a ton of talent, and they're still trying to figure out how that talent comes together. Especially going against some of the more veteran or more dynamic teams in the American Conference. So they're a vulnerable team. They've got a ton of talent, and they could certainly. At their best, if they're working together, then they're going to be, really, really difficult to beat. But if we're at our best, we can match up with them pretty well and we'll see what happens at the end of the game. I think that if we're intense on defense the way we've shown, especially in these last 3 games. The 2 games that we won in conference, and for stretches in the Wichita State game. We kind of show that fight. We show that energy and stay in it no matter what. We do have the home court advantage. And I'm just hoping that on Wednesday night, which is a game that I'm going to make sure I'm in attendance for, I'm hoping that Knight Nation brings it and we show up for our team and hopefully we're able to pull off what would still be, regardless of their 3-3 record in the league, what would still be a huge win for us opponent wise, but a huge win for us momentum and needed win in the conference, because obviously we've got to stay in the fight and bring it to 3-5 as opposed to 2-6. It's really a pivotal game for us to see what can happen the rest of this year and get back on track.
And no matter win or lose, Wednesday, 7 o'clock, first tip, they go to Tampa on Saturday. Again, 55-54 over the Cows on the 18th. Cows 1-6. So, they're in last, looking up at everybody. It's the rivalry game. And, Coach Gregory, sour grapes there at the end, felt the refs were working against them in that 1-point loss at UCF. So they're going to be fired up to take it to the rival, making this second game of the week also very critical for UCF.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Cows are the Cows, right? So we're always going to get up against a rival school, and especially after the way that game ended when they were in our house last week, certainly they're going to be ready to go and ready to get revenge on us on their home court. And I have every confidence that we're going to be ready for that game on Saturday and be able to take it to them. It was a weird game when they played on our home court last week. It was just kind of a strange game to watch in the sense that it was very much a defensive battle. It was another game that was kind of a strange officiated game. There was some weird calls throughout the game, not only at the end there, but throughout the game. And I think that we need to be ready for another kind of gutty defensive battle. They're a good defensive team, and they're going to give us everything they've got. So we've got to be able to lock them down and have some semblance of togetherness and moving the ball well and driving to the basket, playing a little bit of more inside out than we have for stretches in the game against Wichita State. We need to show more of that, getting to the basket and taking it to them and playing at the same level physically than they show to us. So hopefully we can take that fight to them and follow up with another 2-0 week like we had last week.
All right, Knights, listen to Ben Stout and Coach Dawkins and his staff, and you'll do that. Ben Stout, thanks so much for joining us on Knightline.
I appreciate it, guys. It's always great talking to you, and go Knights and charge on.
All right, next up is the Memphis game. Memphis game will be the space game, and that means UCF wearing space-themed uniforms in basketball. Did you see them? What do you think?
I love them. The reveal video was awesome.
They do such a good job with the social, don't they?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I like the uniforms. I find that it's kind of interesting that it says Citronauts across the front of it instead of Knights. I like it. I mean, I like it.
They flirt with this Citronaut branding.
I love the blue as well. I really like the blue. And I know that it's not one of our primary colors.
Seems to now be one of the
I like it.
color palettes. Yeah. I asked on Twitter, I just threw it out there one afternoon when the Space Game Uni reveal came. The premise of the question is as follows. UCF can only have one nickname. Only one. Which? Citronauts or Knights? 74% said Knights, but what surprised me was a quarter of the people like that Citronaut branding and offered a lot of reasons for it. That they say it's unique. No one else would ever have that.
Yeah. It is unique, and I kind of like it. I do like it. Now, was it and I don't know this, so I'm asking in genuine, questioning. Was that the actual...
Never an actual name.
So when it was FTU, that was not...
No. It was flirted with. It was talked about. That logo that we now know, the orange with the astronaut garb and all of that. No, never officially a name.
It probably should have been. It probably should have been. It has something to do with Central Florida, where the Knights, it really doesn't. And the Knights are used quite a bit in college sports. I mean, there's the
Army Black Knights.
Army Black Knights. Well, or are they the Golden Knights?
Las Vegas Golden Knights.
Oh, that too. And then there's the Scarlet Knights.
Rutgers, yeah.
And there's probably more that I'm.
No, I think that's it in college football.
Okay.
Are those?
I mean, I'm sure there's more in basketball because
probably,
there's tons more teams.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, we are the Knights, and we will be the Knights. But I don't think it's a bad idea to throw it in every once in a while. I would love to see a Citronauts football uniform.
Do you think
and I
they'll
know
go that
a
far?
lot of people have wanted to see that over the years and have
think
been
they'll go that far?
clamoring for it. I think so.
You think they'll go that far?
I think they will.
You think this teases that a little bit that they're willing to go there?
Well, they're willing to go there on the basketball jersey.
Maybe they're a little trial balloon.
Yeah, and see what flack they get for it, I guess. I mean, is it going to say Knights on the bottom of the screen, or will it say Citronauts on the bottom of the screen?
I bought a game-worn baseball jersey
That says Citronauts. Yeah, and they've used it in baseball as well.
Yeah.
So,
and that merch sells, too.
the only part that I don't like about it, and I like it with the blue, and if they would use it with the blue, that's perfectly fine with me. I don't want to see Florida orange, and I don't want to see Miami green involved in this. And those are the two colors that are kind of in there.
Unless it's the little Citronaut logo. Then
Right.
you'll deal with the orange.
Yeah, that's fine for the logo. He's an orange, obviously. But I don't want to see like us with a white, jersey with green Citronaut or something on it and yellow and orange pants or something like that.
No. Yeah.
So if they want to go with it and use the blue, I'm all for it. I think they should do that, but I don't want to see orange in any uniform, personally, at all. So, I like it as far. I mean, we'll see what they do if they do that.
Well, I remember
we'll see
talking.
if they get flack for doing it. They didn't get flack
No,
for doing it.
no. No, people seem to like it. Remember when we spoke to Eric DeSalvo in advance of the space game, and they start thinking of this really early because they have to have production deadlines to have all of that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, they have to be made by Nike in the sweatshops of
well, there's that.
Indonesia or wherever the heck they're made.
Yeah, they're not making them in Oviedo, probably. So I think they like flirting with it, and they have fun with it. That's certain, and people seem to enjoy it, and the merch flies. So but you're okay with it, and we'll see how it looks on TV and in
good.
person
I want
on Wednesday.
one of those jerseys. I think they're really cool looking. I mean, the Citronaut stuff when they make it and they sell it, it's like hotcakes. It goes so fast. And Jeff Levy wore that Citronauts hat quite a bit, So I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, I understand that it could be a sore subject for people. I do understand because you're having people, agree and disagree whether your mascot is your
does it
should
surprise
be your
you?
real mascot.
26%.
I am
favor
surprised a
Citronauts?
little bit about that.
I would have thought
But
10
I
to
think
15.
I think it's for the reason that I gave earlier. And I saw that on there, and I totally agreed with that person that said that. And that was what somebody said. It's almost a virtual quote, that has something to do with Central Florida. So we'll see. You never know. They may take that farther. They may not.
All right. Well, we continue our look at
you. You didn't really say. I mean, you didn't really give your opinion on it.
Well,
you're an alumni. You've been here longer than I have.
All right, I'll get all my opinions out there. I do not agree with changing the name from UCF to Orlando, as was bandied about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
It's the silly
Neither do
off
I.
season.
Yeah.
It's the silly off season
Right.
where media members need topics.
Right.
So I support UCF, not changing the name to Orlando. To me, it's the Knights. I like that they flirt with the Citronauts. and trot it out every so often. I have a Citronauts hat. I have the game-worn baseball jersey, so I don't mind when they do it from sport to sport. I think the Canaveral blue looks good. I'm personally not in favor of it as being part of the color scheme for UCF, but I understand it, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
those are my positions on all of that. Now, I didn't offer that choice. It was you can only have one nickname, so I would vote Knights based on that question, but I'm fine with it being Knights and have a Citronaut jersey every year for men's basketball and do it for all the sports. I'd love to see a Citronaut soccer jersey and softball jersey.
You think football, you would like to see that?
I agree with you. No green or orange other than the orange in the logo. I don't know whether they tie that into the space game, but I'd love to see that orange on the helmet, the little logo on the helmet.
Yeah, no, I would love to see that actual logo. Yes, absolutely.
I like how they, in years past, have used the service academies on the helmet. Remember the logo of Army and Navy and Air Force and the Marines, and they incorporated that into the helmet. So
this year the helmets weren't as exciting as they have been. Besides the space game helmet, it was awesome. But there were some games that there was a couple logos that were pretty cool that had stuff like in the logo or whatever that you could see. You couldn't really see it on TV, but you could see it, close up or a picture of it. The one that I kind of missed was the American flag UCF logo.
Oh yeah, that's a good logo.
I love that. I have a hat that has that. I love
that's
the
a good
American
logo.
flag in the UCF. And they used that a couple of years ago, maybe last year.
That was a good logo.
Yeah, I'd like to see that one come back.
Yeah, that was a good logo. We continue our look at 50 years of men's basketball. Don Mathis, forward out of West Palm Beach, lived in a trailer when then FTU started its men's basketball program. Time to go down memory lane.
50 years of UCF basketball. How does that feel?
It can't be that long. There's no way. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was neat to start something. When the day I showed up here on campus, there was 1,800 kids or something like that. And when I left 4 years later, there were 8,500. And it was fabulous to grow everything.
You're living in West Palm. What brings you here?
That's a long story. I had chances to go some other places and play ball, and didn't want to go to any of them before it was over with. And they said they were going to start a program, and it was kind of the right distance and the right way to go. And by that time, it had gotten late, and I said, heck with it, let's go there. And that's how we ended up here.
What was it like to start a program?
It's always interesting. Fortunately, we had Torchy, and it changed the whole environment. He kept it fun and he kept it organized. Dr. Roeder was tremendous at giving him the green light when he needed it to get things done. And, I was really different. I came by the stadium here today, and the bus came in with the South Florida team, the way they have their dorms and all this stuff around here. We used to meet in front of the administration building and get in two vans and go to a game somewhere. It was real different.
And played your games where?
Oh, God, we played most of our games downtown at the junior college facility down in Orlando. That was pretty much where we played most all of them. We practiced a lot up at Oviedo High School, any place we could get. We practiced one time at some geodesic dome over on the other side of the city after a heavy rainstorm and the roof was leaking, so we had to play around the buckets. It was a very different program than you have now.
Yeah, you no doubt had state-of-the-art equipment, though, right?
Oh, yeah. About 4 new basketballs. Don't get them dirty. That was what we had. I brought a jersey with me. This was our jersey from the first year. You can't see it on the radio, but it was very different. So, a lot of fun. Though.
A ragtag group of players come together to start a program, and you start off with success.
You could not start off with success with Torch. I mean, he just had a way of getting people to do things right and knew what he was doing. And we had a lot of fun doing it again. Played some practice games against the Air Force bases around and stuff. And that was always different because there were some people there back in those days avoiding the draft that were real ball players. So we got some real good practice in that other people wouldn't have had. And, it was just a whole different mindset and a whole different time.
What kind of player were you?
My function was rebounding and playing defense and sort of the enforcer. I played at 6'4", 225 when I played. So, and in the summers I worked construction, so I was usually in pretty good shape when I showed up. And that was what I did. And after the first year with Eddie Smith, who was a fabulous guard, and Mike Clark, who was just tremendous to play with, and became real good friends with them. We had some good times, and could do things that some coaches from some very big programs came in and went, wow, I haven't seen you guys do a fast break that quick before. That was pretty amazing, and it's just the way we did. Torchy's always had us running.
What did you learn more from Torchy, basketball or life?
Life, by far. Absolutely by far. He was... Torch and I had a pretty special relationship. I will never forget when the basketball ceremony it was our senior year last year after the season, and Smitty and I were the two main graduates, the two starters that were leaving, and Torch looked at me and said, "Oh, I'm really going to miss you. We had such good talks." I was like, "Yeah, that's right, Torch, we did." I can tell hundreds of stories and things that he did in places, and Mike and I, his son, used to dress in the lockers beside each other and we had a blast, and we looked at the stat sheets and goofing around. And we had a relationship with Torch, and after he went and calmed people down, if we had a bad game or something, he'd come over and tell us what he really thought. So it was real different. It was different than any coach I'd ever thought about being around, and had a good time with it.
What does this program mean to you now?
It's just great to see the whole university. You know, I was driving around today. When I came to school in the first semester, I also did a work study program and worked in the engineering department, helped design the sprinkler systems around what was the original library and what was being built as the administration building in the first couple of dorms. Because there weren't any grass when we opened the school up, and there wasn't grass until the springtime. We had to get the sprinklers in first. But they had the layout for this campus, and they stuck to the plan of all the roads that turn in and out and weave around, and the accesses on the Alfea Trail. Somebody had a vision and really did a wonderful exercise of planning the whole thing, and to watch it come along and watch the football program, the basketball program be what they are. And of course, accelerated the basketball program awful fast. He had them in that kind of Division II or whatever it was called. He had them in the Final Four of that, a few years after I left. So it was the right thing to bring in a coach like him that really knew what he was doing, and to see it then grow from there and be a powerhouse. To see players in the NBA from the program here, it just says a lot about Orlando and says a lot about the university. Became a force in so many different ways, and to have athletics go along with it, it's the right thing to do. The kids seem to love it that it's still here. And all the basketball players seem to have grown. I don't know why they got taller. Maybe they're feeding them wrong. I haven't figured that one out.
You could never have imagined that we'd be here outside this arena and the success of this program, of course, most recently, taking Duke to the brink.
Yeah.
What do the next 50 years look like, do you think?
I think you're going to see the basketball program come along like the football program. I think the coach they have had the right training and the right program, speaking of Duke. And, I think you will see this start to get that asset up there with the rest in the country. And they're playing in a conference right now that's tremendous. It's funny, looking at this year, I was having a discussion with a friend the other night. It's sort of hard to tell who's the best teams in the country now. The 3 or 4 of the teams in this conference are playing with anybody that wants to play them. So, I think you're going to see the UCF, really, over the next few years, start to become what that power should be at the size of the school and the chance they have. And it's a great place to go to school. It's kind of hard in a day like today to not be here. I'm going back to where I'm living these days in Tennessee tomorrow morning, and when I get off the plane, it's supposed to be about 19 degrees. It's going to be a little different. So it shouldn't be too hard to recruit some kids that want to stay warm most of the year. And that was one of the fun programs with Torch. She liked to take us back to Wisconsin and Chicago and places. Those are pretty hard for us Florida boys. Get off the plane and it's snowing and ice and you're slipping and sliding and getting stuck in a snowstorm at Kennedy Airport trying to get back to the Quonset Dome that was Orlando. Speaking of things that have changed, the airport's a little different than it was 50 years ago, too. It literally was a Quonset hut from the old military days. And, the fog used to take it over at about 10 o'clock at night and couldn't land. So we had some really interesting trips. This program has every chance in the world of becoming one of the better ones in the country if they keep at it. I mean, the football is the perfect example. If you do it right, you can get there because the kids want to come here. And they have the facilities now. It's over by the workout center or whatever they're calling it, the sports center or some guy for those guys now in the dorms. You needed those. You got to get those steps going. I was talking to our roommate today. We lived in a trailer my senior year, and it was pretty interesting. I lived on campus the first year with about 12 other people, it seemed. I mean, it's really, really different. But it made it an experience you can remember, and it made it the start of something. We planted the roots and so many things here, from student government to the fraternity systems to the classrooms. Just really changed it around. I mean, the school was originally designed to replace the engineers and get them reskilled when the Air Force Base and the space shots were slowing down in the late 60s. They immediately realized, hey, we need to do other things. It became extremely good in so many other areas. So you got the academics, you got the sports facilities, you'll get a program that'll be great very soon.
I love hearing about the old days of the program from these guys.
He's like, I can't believe it's been 50 years.
And I guess at some point we will say the same, right? Yeah.
50 years of Knightline.
Oh, I don't.
We'll be like, hey, Shunny, come here, little Shunny boy.
I can't remember that lady's name.
Come here, you little knight.
What was that girl's name in Georgia? Little Lebby.
Libby, whatever.
Knightline celebration of 50 years of UCF men's basketball continues on our next all-new episode when we hear from another one of those original players.
I'm Jeff Allen. Join me each and every week on the Knightline Sports Network for the AAC Report. We bring you in-depth coverage of each school in football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, golf, tennis, and more, as well as bring you insider interviews and focus in on the biggest games and news of the week. That's all right here each week on the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network.
Taking a look at your Knightline planner. Women's basketball at Temple on Wednesday the 29th. Ladies return home on Saturday the 2nd, or I think it's Saturday the 1st. I think I'm wrong on that. I think Saturday is the 1st.
Either way.
With a 2 p.m. tip time against SMU. Friday the 31st, men's tennis is at Wake Forest. Women's tennis welcomes Florida State. Then Sunday the 2nd, men's tennis is at Virginia. Women's tennis hosts Texas A&M. Women's golf opens the UCF Challenge at Orlando's Eagle Creek Golf Course. And we are giving away another 4-pack of tickets to Island H2O Live. Will you be this week's winner? Stay right there. Plus, we're talking UCF softball as the program's 19th season approaches. Stay with us. Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com. UCF softball finished the 2019 season 34-21 under then first-year head coach Cindy Ball Malone. How does the team look in 2020? We turn to the voice of UCF softball, Eric Lopez, who's also a part of the In the Circle softball podcast. Eric joins us on the Knightline hotline. Eric, welcome back.
Boys, it's good to hear your voices. It means softball season's here. I'm close to starting my 14th season. So that's always a positive when I hear your voices and we're talking softball.
You're about to start your 14th, UCF softball about to start its 19th. What's your assessment of Cindy Ball Malone's first year, 34-21, 11-10 in the American?
Well, it was a year of transition. I think it was a transition for Coach Ball Malone to learn the players that she inherited. I think it was a transition for the players to learn Coach Bear, as they call her, and because she's very different style than Coach Gillespie. She's very demanding of them as far as watching tape, learning the offense. She runs the offense. She calls pitches. So I think it was a transition for all parties. I think it went better than a lot of situations like this would normally go because I think everybody kind of bought in, and it was a year of transition. I think she learned a lot about what she has as far as around her on the roster as well as the school. I think the players learned what she expects of them. So I think it was a year of transition. I think they learned a lot from each side, and I expect a lot of really excitement over this year, too. I think now all of a sudden, whereas last year was like, well, we don't know what to expect on a daily basis on both sides. Now it's like, well, we kind of know what to expect, and we're a lot more comfortable. I think that's always the norm in all these coaching transitions, and I think it was the same here. So I think all things considered, I think it was a very positive year considering you're going from a drastic change from a coaching personality standpoint. I mean, really a big positive and a credit to everybody. I think it's a credit to Coach Ball Malone for getting the players to buy in, and I think it's a credit to the players for being very open and willing to adapt.
Team only has to replace a couple of seniors, but one of those is Cassidy Brewer, led the team with a .341 batting average. What do you make of that? How much of a loss is that for the offense?
Well, you mentioned Cassidy Brewer. I mean, not only your production offensively is the big question, but don't forget defensively. She's one of the arguably best defensive catchers they've ever had. She threw out 31% of base runners throughout her career, second most, best percentage in the history of the program. She's top 5 in a lot of the offensive categories. So I think that's the biggest question, especially I think still today, who's going to catch? They have some options. Carissa Ornelas, who returns from last year in her second year, I think is an option. You certainly have a couple other players as an option, but I think that's going to be, I don't think one person is going to replace the production offensively. I think what they hope is they have more depth this year. They have more depth. They have 12 newcomers on the roster, I believe 26, 27 players in total on the roster, so they definitely have the depth. Now it's just a question of what positions do you put him in? But I think even the bigger question, not just the production of Brewer, but the production as far as defensively behind the plate, working with the pitching staff. I'm very fascinated to see as the season goes on. Does one player step up and stand out as being the main catcher, or is it a platoon situation which has its pluses and minuses from a standpoint of keeping everybody fresh? But I think that's going to be a very interesting question, and I think one of the obviously keys that a lot of Knight fans are going to be looking at early in the season.
And how the catcher relates to the pitching staff. Team ERA of 1.88, of course, led by Aaliyah White, 23-14, a minuscule 1.61 ERA. She looks to lead again another dominant staff.
No question about it. I mean, Aaliyah's been tremendous. Has kind of been dealt a tough hand throughout her career. When I go back to her freshman year, she had to carry the staff more than she probably was expected to due to some injuries on the pitching staff her freshman year. So she's always not had the staff depth behind her that probably a normal staff would have. So she's had to eat a lot of innings. That won't be the case this year. I think this is the deepest staff she will have. You have Brianna Vasquez, who returns for her sophomore year after a very good freshman year. And then you've got the transfer, Gianna Mancha, who's a transfer out of Boise State, obviously a recruit of Coach Ball Malone, has pitched in a regional, has experience. So I think this is a strong pitching staff, maybe the deepest UCF's had. As you mentioned, pitching was not the problem last year. They were a top 15 in the country in ERA as a staff. And Aaliyah, obviously entering her senior year, she knows how important it is. All seniors do. The senior class understands. They haven't been to the NCAA tournament since 2016. They want to get to the NCAA tournament. They're also hosting the American Conference Championship in Orlando. So all of those goals are out there for them. And they know that this is their last opportunity to achieve them. And I think they're ready to go. I've noticed a leadership from Aaliyah being around them, and as well as the seniors around them. They've been around at UCF basketball games and football games, and they're definitely a very tight group. So I think the leadership's there. So I think for Aaliyah, she's got a chance to break a lot of records this year at UCF. Certainly the win mark is going to be one that's going to be talked about a lot. She's about, I believe, 14 wins behind Shelby Turnier for all-time wins leader. So, but she's not too worried about that. I think she just wants to win, and she wants to hopefully win a conference championship and end her career in the NCAA tournament.
Not that I put much stock in preseason coaches polls, but the league has UCF fourth. I don't care so much about that, but what do you think about the overall strength of the American in softball on the national landscape?
Well, I think the league's been very strong. It's been a top 6 RPI league in the last handful of years. They've been putting in 3 to 4 bids. I think this year it's a very interesting year in the league. You have South Florida with Georgina Corrick, who's a 2-time reigning American Conference Pitcher of the Year. They're the favorites. But Ken Erickson, their legendary head coach, will not be coaching them this year. He's taking a year off because he's coaching the U.S. Olympic team. So Jessica Moore, his longtime assistant, will be the interim head coach this year because Ken has to take care of obligations with USA Softball and their tour during the college season. So you have those questions with South Florida. You have a team like Tulsa, who's been a perennial contender and a conference champion contender. John Barfield, who's one of the top coaches in the country, resigned after this past season and is now an assistant coach at Oklahoma State, which shocked a lot of people. So they promoted their assistant in. How are they going to do with that adjustment? So I think there's a lot of questions with the league. I don't take too much into the coaches poll just because they usually just copy what happened last year and things change. I think in this league they have a chance to be a 3-bid league. I think UCF has a chance to be one of them. I think UCF is definitely one of 4 teams that can win this league. I don't see a dominant team per se. I think it's a narrowed group, and I think it's going to come down to a lot of close games and swing games and series. Something to make a reminder, UCF goes to USF, goes to Wichita State. Those are probably the 2 teams that UCF will have to go through if they want to win the American Conference Championship.
Of course, it gets all underway with a black and gold tournament. Quite a schedule. 2 games. The first one begins February 6th, 6 o'clock at the UCF softball complex. Got 2 the Thursday and the Friday with Indiana. On Saturday, Clemson and Duke. Sunday, Duke and St. John's. Before all of that, though, is a kickoff dinner that you will be emceeing. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think the kickoff dinner is a cool event. It's never been done before. I know this was Coach Bear. She's done this where she's been at, probably Boise State among them, and it's a chance for the fans to kind of get to meet the team in person, get to kind of know what's coming up this season, what's going on with the program, an opportunity to kind of have some auctions, get some, buy some good stuff. And, good dinner. And I think it's a great cause to kind of like football and basketball do to kind of kick off the season. I think it's the same thing that softball's trying to do here. And I think it's a great idea to kind of get fans more connected with the program. And I'm certainly fortunate that I was asked and I will host the event. So I'm looking forward to being there at Doubletree on Saturday night. Hope people come out there and meet this great group. They do a lot of great things off the field, and on the field product is great. And, like I say, you go to UCF_softball for more details. But you mentioned the schedule real quick. It's probably one of the most incredible, toughest schedules any UCF team's ever had. And Coach Bear's even told me, either she's going to be real smart or not if she's scheduling it. But it is incredible. You mentioned that opening weekend. Indiana is a team that just missed the NCAA tournament. You've got Clemson playing their first weekend as a softball program. This is their first year in softball. Then later on in the year, they're going to California. They're going to play the defending national champions, UCLA. They're playing Michigan and Minnesota, 2 teams that were top 16 last year. Florida comes to UCF. Washington comes in February 12th. They are arguably the co-favorites to win the national title this year. They're going to probably be either number 1 or number 2 ranked by the time they arrive to UCF on February 12th. That'll be the second Pac-12 team to ever play at the UCF softball complex. So I'll tell you this, boys, UCF will not have an issue as far as schedule strength, as far as making the NCAA tournament. They have a really strong schedule strength. They go to Florida State as well. So if they can win enough of those games, they will be in great position to make the NCAA tournament. That's part of the philosophy, is get a strong schedule, and the committee looks at that, and also get you ready for conference play. If you play the best teams in the country, you should be ready to play in the conference tournament and in the conference regular season. I think that's what the Coach Bear's philosophy, it comes to that scheduling.
Well, if you can't make it out to the UCF softball complex, be sure to listen to Eric Lopez all season long on broadcast of UCF softball. Eric, thanks again for joining us on Knightline.
Always a pleasure to talk to you boys. Always a pleasure to talk UCF with you. Thanks for covering UCF softball. Always appreciative.
All right, so more information about that opening day dinner, which you can find at UCF_softball on Twitter. You can find it on the Athletics website. It's Saturday, February 1. 6 to 7 is the social hour dinner.
Sure it's not the second?
I'm sure. Yeah. All right. Thanks for pointing out my mistake this year. Dinner and live auction from 7 to 9. This is at the Doubletree by Hilton Hotel right out by UCF. And as you heard, Eric will be emceeing that.
That'll be fun.
Island H2O Live, a new wave of water park.
Experience the next generation of fun at Island H2O Live. You choose the music, you choose the lighting, and you choose where to share your memorable moments at Florida's newest and most immersive water park.
Island H2O Live.
Now open in Kissimmee, located off US 192 and State Road 429 on Inspiration Boulevard.
Island H2O Live.
All right, here we go with another Island H2O Live giveaway. Last week winner was UCF Girl on Twitter, a.k.a. Kim Tom. and a bunch of numbers. This week's winner, congratulations to Miles, a.k.a. All Night, A-L-L-L-L, Night. So, all night, you got to give me an email you need to send me at least a direct message so I can send your email address to the people, the great people, by the way, at Island H2O. So, congratulations, Miles, a.k.a. All Night.
All right, what do you think Coach Heupel does with the running backs in 2020? That is one of the questions in our Ask Knightline inbox. We get to that when Knightline number 220 returns.
Oviedo Brewing Company is the hottest microbrewery in Central Florida. Located 7 miles from UCF at the Oviedo Mall, this 8,800 square foot brewery just opened its doors 6 months ago and has already crafted 13 unique beer flavors and counting in their tap room. The tap room contains different styles of beverages, including ciders, wines, and craft sodas. Not only do they have amazing beers, they also have a full kitchen with gourmet pizzas, wings, and tacos. Oviedo Brewing has activities for each day of the week, such as Taco Tuesdays, Trivia Wednesdays, Pizza and Pint on Thursdays, plus live music on Friday and Saturday evening. But the best is Sunday brunch with unlimited beer mimosas. Need a spot for game day? Oviedo Brewing is just the place with their large TVs to catch all the live games. You also find Oviedo Brewing at UCF tailgating sampling beers. And OBC support for the Knights doesn't stop there. If you need a spot for UCF away games, come to Oviedo Brewing Company, where the Knightline Sports Crew will be broadcasting live after the game. You can get all the details on their Instagram or Facebook page. Follow them at Oviedo Brewing CO. Download the Untapped app, and you can find out what beers are on tap. The food menu is also available on their website, oviedobrewingco.com.
Hey, Night Nation. It's Adam from the Sons of UCF. Be sure to check out our show every Wednesday only on the Knightline Sports Network. Now, back to two guys who probably won't be Cow of the Week nominees, Andrew and Trace.
Ask a Knightline is brought to you by Chad Barr Law. Chad is a UCF alumnus and diehard Knights fan. Chad Barr Law handles auto accident, slip and fall, and personal injury cases. Call Chad today at 407-599-9036 for a free consultation. That's 407-599-9036. Armor up and call Chad Barr Law today.
All right, that time again for Ask Knightline, answering the questions that you send to us on our Facebook page or via Twitter at #AskKnightline. At Skillern would like to know how many more scholarships and who we are targeting. We mentioned that National Signing Day is coming up Wednesday, February, 5th. So not too far away, and most of what UCF did, they did an early signing day.
Yeah, I think they did most of it in early signing day, and I'm not sure how many actually remain. I don't think there's there's not a lot that remain, but I do know that they have been putting out a lot of offers this last couple weeks on 2021. They're really, really getting a head start, and even on 2022, there's a couple of guys that they have offered already for that. So they really want to get a bunch of guys. They've got a quarterback already for 2020 that they're from Rockledge that they're looking at. 2022. Who else is 2022? And there's a 2023 guy. So he's a freshman this year, I would think.
If and/or when Quadri gets officially put back on the roster, seemingly that means one less available scholarship too, perhaps, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would think. And then there was a couple of guys that came back as well, and I don't know, or the one guy, the safety / special teams player, he may have come back to get a scholarship. You never know. So I don't think there's a lot left. I think there's going to be a few spots, but I think their big thing that they needed to finish up was Parker Navarro, the quarterback, and they it sounds like they've got him, about ready to sign. So we shall see. Coming up really quick.
Yeah. At We Are UCF Family, with word Quadri is returning. Will James Collins return as well? Didn't he transfer to Alabama State as well? Have heard none of that, which, of course, is a completely different situation. We don't know the full reason that Quadri wanted to be back. I didn't read what I had added earlier from Quadri on his social media when he said, "I chose to come back to be a part of a brotherhood. I love my brothers." Again, he wanted more playing time and a better situation is why he left, and he's returned and welcome back, which good lesson to everybody why not to trash players on social media when they make decisions, because with the way this free agency works, they could be back. But I've heard nothing about James Collins returning, and perhaps for him, the Alabama State situation is a better one. He is also asking anything new about Anthony Roberson. I've heard nothing.
He's still listed in the transfer portal. I was just looking at it. He's still listed in there as from UCF. It doesn't say that he's going anywhere. I don't think the status of any of our guys has changed in here. Let me look one more time because I closed it. I'm looking.
The mysterious transfer portal.
Yeah, and it's not letting me get to our team. It will here. Hold on.
Well, the rest of what
Yeah.
We Are UCF Family said, I think it is lost on many people that a player entering the portal does not always end with them transferring. Reading media articles and fan reactions the past 2 months referring to those that enter the portal as former Knights. I understand the distinction there, and I think completely true, just because you've expressed an interest. And I hope coaches, and I don't mean this specific to UCF, they understand that this is a changing situation, and if the player is a valuable part of the team, they'll be welcome back, and you hope that for Quadri and whomever else should return.
Yeah,
but you can't begrudge these players if they're looking for a better situation for them, either academically or athletically, or both.
I think there's a new one on here as well that I don't remember being on there before. Linebacker Audrey Kearney. I don't know of this guy, so I don't know anything about him. But it looks like he's. Oh, this was okay. Now I do. I think I know. This was the guy. He is a Virginia Tech commit, and maybe he's the one that came here from there, and he's looking to go elsewhere again, possibly.
I thought I had read something about him.
Yeah, I think
Jason Beatty, who we've had on talking about recruiting before. I thought he had posted something on his Twitter handle about him.
He was the one that came from Virginia Tech, and I think he may have been the one possibly that had the knee issues.
Linebacker, this is at the real Beede, B-E-E-D-E, linebacker Andre Kearney back in the NCAA transfer portal per the team's season stats. Kearney did not see the field for the Knights. The Jacksonville native saw action in 10 games with 2 starts for Virginia Tech in 2018.
Was that? Did I totally miss it?
Yeah, this was a post from Jason on January 19th.
Oh, okay, well, that wasn't too long.
So that's why when you say you see him in there.
Yeah. So I believe that he was the guy that had multiple knee surgeries, and he was trying to get back from one and just couldn't quite get it going last year for us. So, well, anyway. Okay, so there's no other big names. Obviously, Josh Kelly, the special teams and safety guy, he's coming back, and Quadri Jones so far. And the rest of our guys, I think we reported Malik Burrow going to Rutgers, and I think and then James Collins going to...
relatively calm.
Yeah, Alabama State.
At Wade_H_UCF, for the first time since 2016, there will be a new center on the offensive line. What do centers and quarterbacks need to be doing now to make that transition easy? Can we punt that question and save it for when we talk about the O-line? Or do you like that question?
No, go ahead. It's fine.
I mean, we're going to be talking more about those players, and I kind of focus in on the position group in the week leading up to Knightline, and I haven't really started to study. But the question is a very good one, and that is going to be a focus of attention in preseason or spring camp. So it is a good question. Let's just save it. I'll throw it in the pile for when we do another show. At FQUCF, trying to think how that would sound if you said it, but what do you think Heupel will do with our running backs? Split touches evenly between Otis, Greg, and Bentavious. Make Otis more available in the pass game and have 2 bell cow backs. What are we going to see? It does give you some options, but I wonder if Coach Heupel and some of the new staff members look at utilizing the running backs in any different way. I think we talked about when we spoke about running backs last week that you'd like to see a return to health and a return to production for Greg McCray.
Yeah. I would
but
really
it's
like
interesting,
to see
the premise of the question, and for me, I think you've done a little of my spring camp work and given me a question to ask Coach Heupel that I can get a glare and no specific answer to.
I mean, I'm expecting the same, but I would like to see what I'm expecting and what I would like to see are two different things. I would really like to see a feature back, and that back really get the majority of the carries, even though we have a bunch of running backs back there that can split them all up. I don't know. I just personally like it. I would love to see another 1,000-yard rusher. And like I said before, if not two. Mm-hmm. So that would make my season to see 2,000-yard rushers.
At blackgold_ed, with reference to this, I don't know if it's controversy.
It's
certainly,
controversy.
What side of the roof claim debate is Knightline on? He offers two choices. Take the big money, who cares what they do as a company, or B, hold out for a more prestigious name like SpaceX Stadium, but less cash. It's hard to summarize this for those that aren't paying particularly close attention to it. However, Roof Claim, who is already on the field, on the court as a smaller sponsor, looked to be a bigger sponsor, perhaps and most likely replacing Spectrum in the name of the football stadium. And then this is where the story begins to get convoluted, and back to the point when we were talking about the reporting surrounding Kobe Bryant. A lot of people talk on Twitter, social media, and message boards that do not have facts, have opinions, and get pieces of facts. And I am challenged by this story in that I have a full-time job and it's not a reporter, so I don't have the time to do what I talked about earlier, getting multiple sources. I will say, and I don't like to do this, I have spoken to people and have gotten more perspective on this story. I don't anticipate Roof Claim is coming back. That ship has sailed, okay? And it's now become an issue with the Florida legislature. Remember Representative Fine from over in Brevard County who floated the maybe UCF should be closed. Now he's floating maybe the legislature should approve who sponsors your stadium. So there are a lot of pieces to this that are far more advanced than we have time to dedicate on Knightline, in my opinion. I will say this. For my part of this, I don't think UCF needs any more bad press in light of what happened with Colburn Hall. Fair or unfair to UCF, but what happened in that situation did not reflect well with the Florida legislature. And we can boo-hoo and say it's packed with Gators and Seminoles, and guess what? It is. And it's politics, and there's good old boy network, and UCF does not yet have that clout at the state legislative level. Do I want the legislature approving who gets to name what? Not necessarily, but there are a lot of reasons. Remember, UCF is still in the search for a new president, behind schedule from all reports. Interim President Seymour wants to wrap up by the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. That may not happen. They haven't even started that process in earnest in hiring a new president, and we're approaching February. There are a lot of issues surrounding the academic brand of UCF and the campus of UCF, and I don't know that they need more bad publicity. So, there's the cash grab, and there will be others that want to be associated. We just talked about how they were one of the most popular brands on TV. We know the other dollars that have been generated. So is that picking a side? I guess that's picking a side.
Okay. Thank you for that editorial. Well, it was a really big deal for UCF if they could have gotten that. Speaking of the money that was offered, the money would have made it one of the largest sports deals in all of college football, period. It would have given a lot of money infused into the program, and I think that would have been a really helpful thing. Do I care if it's roofclaim.com or who? No, I don't, but I would like to see us get that kind of money from somebody, no matter who it is. And I don't think that the state legislature and insurance, what do they call them? Lobbyists should be telling, universities or even lobbying for universities not to get a certain sponsor or to get a certain sponsor. I don't think that it comes down to morality of their business. If they can afford the sponsorship, I think that they should afford the sponsorship. If they can't afford the sponsorship, then they're not obviously within question. Now, part B as well, I would love to see SpaceX on the side of our stadium. I love that company. I love what they're doing. I love everything about it. It's interesting. The launch pad is right there at the 50-yard line when you look over there. They are doing incredible stuff. And I think their logo would look awesome on our stadium and on our space uniforms. I think that'd be awesome. So
can I throw out on the morality of a corporation
Sure.
question? So a strip club is a legal business. If they ponied up the money, should that be a name that goes on your stadium?
I don't think that it would.
No, I know.
Because you don't see many stadiums.
I know, but it's a legal business, and if they ponied up the money, do you take the money because they pony up the money? Or medical marijuana is now legal in Florida. If a CDB company wanted to sponsor it, would UCF take that money? I mean, so there are some lines that UCF would draw, right?
Well, yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about a roof company. We're not talking
Except there
about
are
a
some
strip
people-
club or a medical marijuana.
But there are some people that have reservations about the way they do their business, and the way they do their business has been looked at
I
and
think-
investigated in other states.
Right, but with morality, I don't think that. I mean, we're not talking about a strip club.
I know, but
I mean, I understand.
But you know what I'm saying is take the money from anyone.
I didn't say that.
No, but you know what? You see what
But
I'm saying.
I did say that I think that we should, if somebody has the money to do it and they want to do it, obviously you have to think about your crowd. You know, you have to think about your alumni and stuff like that. Maybe it would, I mean, I'm sure somebody votes on these things. So if, I don't even know what the big strip club names are around here, believe it or not. But if one of them decided to do it, I mean, you know, I don't think that would probably be a good idea.
But there'd be reason that some people would pause at that, and there are some reason that people are pausing at the association with this brand, and everybody's jumping to conclusions that it's about lobbyists from the insurance industry, and maybe it's a little bit more than people have time and ability to investigate.
Well, I mean, I've looked into it quite a bit, and I do believe that it was a lobbyist that lobbied against this company because, you know, I mean, roof installers, it's one of the biggest scams that happen in the state of Florida, period, or maybe in the entire United States, period. So obviously that's kind of what happened here. I mean, I know when I had to replace my roof after whatever hurricane it was, what the hell was it? Irene or not Irene?
I don't know.
What was it? The last big one that we had 3 years ago. I don't remember. Irma. It was Irma. After I had to do my roof, in the process of finding a company to fix my roof, I got plenty of scams. People walking around and trying to seem legit, and they weren't. I mean, I had people walking down the sidewalks in my neighborhood trying to scam their way in. One of them I caught like red-handed when they started getting. I was like, okay, yeah, let's talk about it. And then they started getting really fishy, like, oh, we need all the money up front, you know, and we'll start 6 months later.
Yeah,
no, I don't think so.
Maybe a sign you don't want to do business.
So I went with the biggest company that I could find. It was not roofclaim.com, but it was one of those, one of the big ones in Orlando. And they did it, and I'm still paying for it. So I guess, you know, people have a problem with that. I haven't heard the general public really have a problem with roofclaim. I think if the alumni and the fans had a problem with roofclaim, they wouldn't be on everything else. Excuse me. But if you look at the press conferences, that logo is what's up there with the UCF logo behind Heupel every time that he talks, and the players and everything else.
Which is a funny thing, right? If it's a problem, it's a problem.
The other problem,
if it's not a problem, you know what I mean? Like if it's good enough to be on the field or the court or the backdrop, if it's good enough to be the name for the Florida Atlantic Arena.
Well, that was where I was going next. Yeah.
Is it a problem or not a problem?
No, I don't think it's that big of a problem personally, but it is what it is. So, you know, obviously that deal is done. We need to get some other deal, and that's a big part of, you know, getting money for our program.
Gotcha. All right. I think Sublime_Knight's looking to have a little fun with you.
Probably.
With this next question.
It's all right. I like animals.
You took a little little flack on Twitter this week for
well, I mean,
not liking some of the questions, but people seem to be in good spirits. And
silly questions.
Updating us
I
about
understand.
where
I'll have a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
It's all good. I have fun. You have fun. We all have fun.
Yeah.
Isn't that what this is all about?
Yeah, knock off the get off my lawn. Your team's in the Super Bowl. Just Sublime_Night wants to know which animal best represents each of our running backs.
Okay.
Otis Anderson. This is all you. This is your question.
I wish that we had the famous coach. Was the Washington State coach and now is
Mike Leach.
Mike Leach answered this question about it's basically the same question. He answered it about like the different mascots in the Pac-12 last year, and it was epic. If you didn't see that, look it up on YouTube or something. I wish I could do the job that he did on this, but I'm going to say so we'll just go with Otis, Greg, and Bentavious. So I'm going to say Otis is probably... I'm not going to give him the cheetah. I'm not going to say cheetah. I'm going to give him probably a jaguar.
I like that.
Because he's pretty fast. The cheetah is kind of for a guy on my football team, on my NFL team, number 10. We call him the cheetah. So I'm not going to give that one. And then Greg... I'm going to give him like a panther or something like that. You know, the Florida Panther. We'll go with that because that's still a pretty fast cat. The next one, Bentavious, not a cat. Not a cat. Even though he's fast, but he's bigger. So I'm going to go with a bear. Some kind of bear.
A bear?
A fast bear.
A fast bear?
There's fast bears out there, trust me. But the bear kind of mauls you and gets through the line and then speeds away.
What are the bears that hang out in your neighborhood?
Those are Florida black bears.
There we go.
And they're pretty fast. So I've seen them take off and run pretty good. And they'll chase you right up a tree if you let them. That's the spot to go, but they'll go up after you.
Remember when Libby was here and I saved her that night from that bear that was in the neighborhood?
Oh, you saved him, yeah. You saved everybody.
I made sure she got to her vehicle all right.
Yeah, and I'm sure she appreciates that.
I shooed away the bear.
Yeah.
That was helping itself to the recycling. Your neighbor?
My neighborhood has the bears, but we have encroached on a lot of their property. So they can come and go through my trash anytime they want to, as long as they clean up after themselves.
To summarize, Otis, Jaguar, Greg, Florida Panther.
Yeah.
And Bentavious.
The Florida Black Bear.
The Florida Black Bear.
Yeah. I mean, just because of he's kind of, he's a bigger guy. I'm running out of cats.
That was a good college try right there with that question.
Well,
I appreciate your spirit after denouncing the SeaWorld related question last week and whatever else we got asked that you didn't like last week.
Well, like I said, we should all play along. They don't really make me mad. I just want sports questions, and this was at least a sports related.
They don't hear what you say about them before the mic comes on.
This was at least.
What kind of question is this?
This was at least a sports-related question, even though it included a little bit of fun. I love animals. I am a huge, huge animal lover.
Did you see? So am I. I would rescue the sharks right off the beach.
If anybody knows about an Asian clawed otter, I'm interested in one. So if anybody knows, I'm looking for an otter. I want an otter
to own
as a pet.
Why?
Because they're awesome.
Is it big?
No, they're like about the size of a small dog or a large cat. I want an otter, Asian clawed. So if anybody out there has, anybody knows an Asian clawed otter breeder, I'm looking. I like the exotic animals.
I look forward to
One day I will
this.
have a very large cat. I don't know what type, but a serval or something like that. Would love an ocelot if anybody knows.
Oh, you're throwing
even
out
a
lot of animal
raccoon.
names.
I had a possum for a little while. I have friends that have had squirrels, all kinds of stuff.
Indoor pet?
Yeah.
A squirrel?
Yeah, if you get them small enough. So say you're mowing your yard or whatever, and you see like a nest of squirrels. If you can get a little tiny one out of there before they're running around crazy, they make really good pets. You have to raise them. You've never heard of anybody having a pet squirrel?
No.
Have you ever heard the expression of that's like crazier than a pet squirrel, or that's as crazy as a pet squirrel?
No.
No? Okay. Well, I have multiple friends that have pet squirrels. You just have to watch out because their claws are a little...
That's enough for me.
Their claws are a little crazy.
That's enough.
But yeah, so, I mean, you freak out about my cats. You're not a big cat guy.
I'm not.
You're scared of my tiny little cats.
The one's a little jumpy, in fairness. In fairness, the one's a little
Has he ever chased you?
I don't allow that to occur.
All right. Well,
I would like to know Sublime Knight's answer to his own question.
I would too.
So throw that back out on Twitter.
Absolutely.
We'd like to see what your answers are.
I like
All
that
right.
question. Thank you, Sublime Knight.
All right. That's Ask Knightline for the week. Thank you,
is.
everyone, for your questions.
And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. All right, getting started with women's basketball. Rebounds from a 60-59 midweek loss at Tulane by upending Memphis 82-66 at home on Saturday. UCF is 3-3 in the American and 11-7 overall.
Track and field with not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top 10 finishes Saturday in the Rod McCravey Memorial in Lexington, Kentucky.
12th ranked women's tennis loses for the first time this season against 15th ranked Michigan on Sunday. The Knights beat Utah on Saturday. UCF is 2-1.
Men's tennis lost 4-3 to 10th ranked UCLA Sunday. They did knock off 24th ranked San Diego on Saturday. UCF is 2-2. Now, mind you, their 2 losses, 10th ranked UCLA and number 1 ranked Florida. So pretty competitive so far.
Absolutely. Baseball welcomes new assistant coach Andy Barquette, who was an assistant hitting coach for the Boston Red Sox the past 2 seasons. Barquette replaces Barrett Serrano, who never coached at UCF in a game. And now he has left already for Kent State.
Here and gone. Club hockey sweeps Miami. Identical scores. 10-3 Friday, 10-3 Saturday. It's good in any sport at any level when you beat Miami.
Absolutely. And finally, women's rugby beats the Gators. Final score, get this, UCF 83, Gators 0. Zilch. Zip. 0. Nada. 83?
The only problem with that score is it wasn't more than 83-0.
Exactly. I've never heard of a rugby game going to 83, period, though. I thought that there would be some kind of a run rule or whatever in rugby if it got to that point. Wow.
When Florida and Miami play UCF, they get thumped. That's why they're afraid to play in the other sports.
Obviously. Wow. That's awesome. Congratulations. I'm going to have to see some UCF women's rugby. I love rugby. You like rugby?
I'm all right with rugby.
It's a good sport. All right, we're off next week. I'm Andrew Phegley.
I'm Trace Trylko. Go Knights!
Charge on.
Onto the field, with our spirits we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry, B-S-E-T-O-R-Y. Tonight our Knights will shine.